Hello, everyone. My name is Robbie Lopez. Today, I am interviewing.
I am BJ Mercer.
Thank you for being here today, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, today I have 10 questions prepared for you.
Okay.
All right. You're just going to say whatever comes to mind, I want to get to know you a little better, Mr. Mercer,
okay.
all right?
Okay.
So, with all that said, let's just jump into it. You are very adamant about your position on classroom utilities, that being your students deserve whatever is the latest and greatest. I know that I've skimmed through a B&H catalog drooling at the thought of having one of those cameras and gadgets, something I'm sure you can relate to. What is one piece of tech for the classroom you've always wanted to get?
It's like a zip line. Yeah,
A zip line?
Really. Well, for many reasons. Like one, the shame is that we don't have to have hall passes. Like it's not mandatory in this school.
Yeah.
In my last school, it was. So I bought all these supplies to have like a zip line from where the podium would be to the door. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I could clip the pass on the zip line, send it down to
There
the
you
door.
go.
There's some restaurants that'll take orders that
Yeah,
way, like old
yeah.
school, and I was like, we need this in the classroom. And I don't know if that's necessarily technology. I think it's been around a while, but it is a shame that we don't have required passes, or else the zip. I have the supplies, like it's ready to go.
Well, there you go.
But now I know you're probably talking about something you
Yeah.
plug in the wall or you charge.
Yeah.
And really at this point, I want, you can tell we've grown in the studio. We have some remote control cameras and things, but I want the whole thing to be remote, and I want there to be a production room where everything's controlled remotely, and the monitors as well as the cameras, and we're close to that, and within a year or two we'll be there. But that'd be cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Some people might be aware that you were a football player in high school, a good one too. I'm sure no year sticks out more to you better than 1998 when it comes to football. So, tell me about the experience of your team becoming state champions representing Stephenville High School.
Wow. It was cool because we were terrible actually. Like in 7th grade, actually I was the quarterback, and and 8th grade, and like we were 2-6-1 in 7th grade, and then in 8th grade I was the quarterback, and in the first game we drove the ball, we scored, and then I broke my collarbone.
Oh no.
And then this dude Kellen Luker took over, and the next game of the season he threw like 3 touchdown passes, and like I hadn't even thrown 3 in my career. So, and then he went on to he broke every state record.
Wow.
And so I was fine with it. I was cool. But the point of it is that we were terrible, but we stayed together, and we're to this day that we're really good friends. And so that's what made it special, is that friendship that we have. And but yeah, we were good. We broke like the national record for total yardage in the history of our country in
Wow.
the world. Like that's us. So
That's pretty.
yeah, in all divisions. And there's still a lot of records that we still hold. So
That's a badge of honor right there.
well, it's but it truly was. It was fun, and from the coaches all the way to the friends, it was a special time. Yeah.
Cool. So, in your career in radio, you had the chance to interview many, many celebrities, from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to James Blunt and Seth MacFarlane. Was there ever one celebrity who you fanboyed over and were just so excited to sit down and talk to?
Well, I'll tell you why they're not really, that's not striking, is because it was work, really. A lot of it,
Yeah.
you put a lot of, so like, let's say, Trent Resnick, or I don't care who you say. You immediately put pressure on yourself, or Fred Willard, or because you want to be good for them and do a good interview, and so sometimes it kind of takes away the fun part because you're in business mode, and But there were big deals. It's like my very first interview with Cross Canadian Ragweed. It was a big deal, and it was because I was your age at that time, and so to sit down with a band that was a big deal was a lot to take, and so that sticks out too. But really, it's the experiences that were fun. If you look back on it, it wasn't me. I've never really geeked out over specific people, but the experience or watching them play live or getting to know them on a personal level, I don't care who it is, like kind of learning how they tick or getting some of their real personality, like the Owen Wilson's that family, the Luke Wilson.
Okay.
Like he was probably one of the most personable and nice. He's a Texas guy too, a North Texas guy, but he was so just nice, and like he remembered my name. Like, you know, he's walking out and he's like, you know, thanks BJ, thanks for everything, and I'm like, all right, dude, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, put me in a movie. But anyway, so I think those experiences are what are most fun about it.
And then I just have like a little extension from that question. So, in your book, Teach Like a DJ, available on Amazon.com, you tell the story of interviewing Carrie Underwood. And I don't want to spoil how it ends. You can find out for yourself. But were there any other embarrassments that come to mind when in front of an A-list celebrity that make you cringe to this day?
There was I was interviewing, this was in LA, and there was a lady, she was on Mad TV. I sat down that day and we did like probably 20 interviews. This was like the 20th interview.
Wow.
And so my brain was done. It didn't matter what she said, and she didn't care what I said. And so we're both sitting there like looking at each other like, well, we got to get through this. But she called me out on it.
Oh, really?
Like the answer to her first question was like, how many interviews have you done today? And I was like, 20. She's like, yeah, I can tell.
Oh, man.
And I don't think she meant it with malice, but she meant it like she gets it because she's in the business on the other side. But that was embarrassing when she kind of called me out on that.
All right. You've mentioned how much of your inspiration comes from your high school teachers, Mrs. Crane, Mrs. Wesson, Mrs. Campbell-Futrick, Mrs. Hassler, Senor Muniz, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. In what ways were their teaching style different from the rest and led you to become a teacher yourself?
Yeah, it was, we just did stuff in those classes. And some of them were English classes, some of them were speech and Spanish even. Or the way they would present the instruction they weren't just standing up there talking. They were standing there, they were dancing, or they were incorporating the kids in it, or they were singing songs and things that just still to this day, when I look back and remember anything from school, I remember those moments. But especially in speech, because that's what drew me into this anyway. And it was every day, it seemed like every day we were doing some sort of activities with your friends in front of the class. So that was just fun. And when I realized that school could be fun and we're still learning and we're getting better, I was like, this is special. But all those had to do, in every single one of those classes, we were doing hands-on stuff that where you really felt like you got something out of it.
And then I also have an extension from this classroom. So I want to see if you can prove the kind of impact your teachers left on you. And in your book, you claim that you can still recite Senor Muniz's Spanish songs to this day. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yo soy tu vas, él va, ella va, y usted vas. Nosotros vamos, ustedes, ellos, luego ellos van. Yo soy a mirada. Something, yeah. Yeah, but the point of it is that first part. You had to get that first part because that was, thank you.
A round of applause
for
that one.
There may be a few more, but that's the first one.
Wow. All right. So it's very clear that you almost advertise yourself as a fun, easygoing guy and will gladly participate in your students' projects playing characters in full costume. And speaking of costumes, because there is so much mystery surrounding it, and I could barely find any information on it, tell me about the Clear Channel Costume Contest 2007 and assuming the role of a disgruntled fairy.
Okay. It started out. Sometimes in that role, it would seem like punishment sometimes, but it started out. I think it was just a fan poll, and one of the things we did a lot back then was you wanted to get hits on the website, and it was good for the sales department, good for promotions and marketing and all that. And so we would do things to direct traffic to the website. So the idea was, well, Halloween's coming up, what can we do? And it was, well, let's have the fans come to the site and vote on what I would be for Halloween, and the fans could pick, and then we'd narrow it down to the top 3, and then we'd vote, and we'd have polls, just directing traffic to the site. But unfortunately, that meant that at some point I was going to have to wear whatever the audience determined.
Yeah.
And there was at that time it was a Chuck and Larry. Was a show or a movie or something, and they wanted me to be the fairy from Chuck and Larry, and that's what the people wanted. And so, and what was more awkward was it was like, because of however Halloween fell at the time, it wasn't going to be a Halloween day of trick-or-treating. It was like, I really think it was like a week before or something. So you're trick-or-treating, in downtown Dallas, just trying to get, and I had like a bucket, and you're going to like Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
and just any restaurant, Jack in the Box, and you would go to the counter and be like, trick or treat, I guess. Cars stopping by on the street, trick or treat, homeless people, and they would give you stuff. So it did work. There was the only fun moment of that. There was someone who stopped and goes, and she fanned out on me dressed as a fairy, and I ended up. I was back, like, MySpace was big then, too.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, my God, are you on MySpace? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I'm going to add you. And I was like, oh, I'm a big deal. This is great. I got a bucket full of, and they would put, like, random, like, a burnt nugget and things, And so I came back, and then we would dump all the stuff out. It was just junk, like a crayon and some trash and a newspaper. That was fun.
Wow, that's a pretty good story right there. All right, so in your book, you talk about working with Ryan Bingham before all the fame and recording his first song with him. For those who don't know, Ryan Bingham is a songwriter who was awarded an Oscar for his best original song in 2009, The Weary Kind, in the movie Crazy Heart. What I want to know from you is how close was your relationship with Ryan, and do you feel any partial responsibility for his success?
For his success, I know. I mean, his talent was. He's just. I'll tell you this though. I knew that the moment I met the guy, and I met again. I was your age when I met him, and I knew he was special. And then it was just he just needed a chance. But this guy had it. I've seen, being in the music business a long time, you see how it goes and how many people come in and out and how many people get chances. And Bingham truly earned it, more so than almost any of them I've met, because he just had to go and just keep pushing and scraping every step of the way. And then he finally got some breaks once he was in LA, but it wasn't easy. He worked to get those breaks. He was just whatever he had to do. And so I can't take any credit for that. But and I didn't even say in the book, I had some influence on his second album also. And I was actually there when he made, he had his own digital recorder at that time, and he recorded like 16 songs, and I provided the discs. I was there. I actually spent the night at his house that night. And then we went out to celebrate that night too. Actually, that was in New Braunfels at the River Road Ice House. But it was, we were really close. I spent the night at his house several times, and more than what's even said in the book. I took a lot of that out actually because it was more like I was kind of fanboying on it at that point. Like, yeah, we did all these things, and but he truly was. He was a friend. He was just a kid that liked to play guitar and sing, which wasn't rare. And what was fortunate was I did have a job at the radio station, and we could make his first demo. And last time I did see Ryan, he did mention he still had that tape. Now it's been ever since he blew up. I haven't seen him, but he's actually coming to Austin here in December. So I'm hoping I'll catch him at that point.
Cool.
See if he still has the tape, because we need to get that digitized if he hasn't done it already. But lots of time together just as a normal guy. But I'm so proud of him. Like you just pulled for him so many times. Oh, and I'd go to his bull rides. He was a bull rider, and I'd go to his competitions. And what's ironic, I don't even know if this matters, but I was working at Mix 102.9, and Ryan came and performed at 92.5 in that room where everything went down. Like if this was my studio or the office where I did all my production, there was a room right next door, and through this would be a window blind, and that would. Well, anyway, he performed in that room 30 minutes later. I never knew, and
really?
they told me the next day. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I didn't. So anyway, that's sad.
Cool. All right. Every school has social groups, whether it be the nerds, the jocks, etc. But there's one title that only belongs to one person per grade: class president. You were class president in your high school and even did radio to boost your reputation with the students. What responsibilities did you hold being class president, and how did you handle it?
Well, there was like a stigma that was like the class presidents never do anything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And so I did. I went that's how it all started, really. Like I went to the radio station to do something for my class and because they had a thing. There was also a college, Tarleton was there, and they had Tarleton Hour on this radio station. I was like, well, let's have SHS Hour. And so I proposed it. And as they were thinking about it for a week, they trained me on how to run the board, and then ended up we couldn't do it because of a contract with another radio station that got the rights to the high school stuff. So, but then I was trained, and so they're like, well, do you want to run the board for Rangers games or football games and things? I said, sure. And that's how I got in the door. So that was cool. That happened. But so then we also had to do project graduation, and I was like, well, everybody there wanted Pat Green to perform, and Pat Green at the time, you could get him for $4,000, and at project graduation, we had Pat Green booked to play our project graduation, but the parents intervened and overruled it, instead we played these ridiculous games, and so I didn't get to do what we did and what we set out to do because the parents took over. So it's very sad thing.
All right.
I'm still scarred.
Every parent and student who has met you knows you are a funny, charismatic guy, and your personality even extends to the walls of your classroom with fun Mario and Donkey Kong decals along with computer-made student projects. I have a feeling that your appreciation for what's new in pop culture, in movies, or video games had to have been rooted in your childhood. What did you enjoy doing back in the early days of elementary and middle school, whether it be playing catch outside or playing the newest Mario game inside?
Yeah, there was a lot of gameplay, and it was I can remember like the first Nintendo came out, and like I remember I always got it later. I never got the first edition because we didn't have a lot of money, but
yeah.
But I can remember like the smell of the packaging with my first Nintendo, and we did have a big TV, and I remember Mario, he's like a foot tall, and like it was amazing, and but yeah, Mario and anything with Nintendo. I liked race car games. I liked like GoldenEye.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the ones where you interacted with your friends.
Yeah.
And in sports games too. so I liked either racing friends or sports games where you're playing, and then or like GoldenEye and Halo, and when we just spend, it's no different than today. That's kind of boring. Like we would spend a whole weekend playing games like that. But we did a lot outside too. Yeah.
You hold a great appreciation for the various projects your students have made over the years, keeping them near and dear to your heart. You talk about some of these projects in your book, such as the SSCP or Operation Dumbo Drop. But what I want to know is, were there any roadblocks that stick out to you in your teaching career? Were there big ideas your students had that you really had to problem solve through, or just difficulties you encountered that you never could have expected?
That was part of the challenge. We loved overcoming those problems because we would try things. Like there's no instructions for some of the things. So a modern example would be like with virtual reality and 360. Now it's finally incorporated into Final Cut or Premiere or After Effects. But 3 years ago, it wasn't. So we just had to find ways to do stuff. Go back to that's an example. But what was the question again?
Were there any roadblocks that stick out to you, or things you had to problem solve?
Okay, yeah. One is in speech class, we wanted to start a word and make it like trend or go viral. And this is back when this is before social media was like it is. So we're really kind of pushing it. But we wanted the word touche. Ended up being the word. And we wanted to show through forms of mass communication how we could make this word just a normal part of the vernacular, like if we could get like Snoop to say it or something, just once, or get it in a rap video or something to get it. So I wanted to be able to sell touche merchandise and accessories. And so I went to get approval from an assistant principal at the time. And she wouldn't approve it, and I could not understand why, and I'm still mad about it. So then we ended up making some. We made some touche bands and touche pens, and those are like one of a kind because those weren't sanctioned and regulated. Like I just did it on my own. That was my own money, and we spread it. Then we would just give them away, and we would take them to the debate tournaments, and I don't guess it ever really caught on. I don't know if you've heard people throwing touche down all the time, but it was a word, like it would mean anything. It would be like, so how's it going? Touche, And but had I had the support of my administration, we'd be on the map right now. You could buy touche shirts and apparel, and we'd be, it'd be a big deal.
All right. Okay. Finally, we're at the end. Thank you for doing this.
Oh no, thank you. It's fun.
I want to ask you one last question. Mm-hmm. Where did your fascination with Back to the Future come from? What fond memories do you hold towards the franchise? How much do you idolize Marty McFly? And do you wish you could pimp your ride with a flux capacitor?
Okay. Yeah, that movie. I mean, I can remember. I think the first time I ever watched it, and you're watching the Doc Brown, and he opens up his the big car, and the DeLorean comes out, and the smoke comes out, and I remember that moment. Like I was like, "This is great!" Like this is, and I just remember seeing that car and like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." But the movie is so good, but I don't know what it is, but I guess some of that's ingrained subconsciously because the way they experience and the way Doc Brown like teaches and learns himself, like I kind of think we should do it that way. I mean, you're hands-on and you're trying stuff, and it may work, it may not, but if it does work, now you're time traveling, Let's do it like that. I mean, he doesn't go by instructions and procedures. He just goes for it. So I maybe deep down that's been very influential because sometimes I feel like that's the way we are in there is, I'm a crazy lab guy, and then you've got a bunch of people running around making it happen. So, and then I just sold the DeLorean, which that's tough. But here's the thing, the next one I get, and I'll get another one. What was sad about my DeLorean is it was in such good condition that I didn't want to mess with it too much.
Yeah.
So the next one I get is going to be one that we're going to turn into a time machine. Like, that's what's going to happen. So one that maybe is in bad or worse shape coming in, but when it's done, it'll be a time machine, and you won't feel bad changing this class's piece of history.
Yeah.
So that it'll be good. It'll pay off in the long run. But yeah, that's a good, interesting point. I never thought of it instructionally speaking, but yeah, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that concludes this interview. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Mr.
you.
Mercer, very much.
Oh, you're the real deal.
Be sure to check out his book, Teach Like a DJ, available on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no. Thank you. You're good. You're the real deal. You're the future. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Yeah, I brought the dragon mug for the interview. I don't know if you caught that.